Ambassador Kim Hyun adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform one final time before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers slid open with a deep, resonating hum. The sound seemed to mock him already, echoing through the vast circular hall that stretched beyond what human eyes could easily comprehend. Thousands of alien delegates filled the tiered seating that spiraled upward into shadow, their forms ranging from the beautiful to the bizarre. The human delegation consisted of only 3 people. Hyun walked at the front, flanked by his aide, Park Min-ho and Security Officer Lee Yuna. Their footsteps clicked against the polished stone floor as they made their way to the center speaking platform. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the chamber followed their progress with obvious amusement. "Behold," announced the towering Vorthok delegate, his crystalline body pulsing with soft blue light. The representatives of the third planet from an unremarkable yellow star. His voice carried the musical quality of chimes, but the words dripped with condescension. They call themselves humans. Ripples of laughter began in the lower tiers and spread upward like a wave. The mouthery section erupted in particularly. Loud guffaws, their forearms slapping against their armored chests in what passed for applause among their kind. Each mouthairy stood nearly 3 meters tall, their skin a mottled gray-green that seemed to shift in the chamber's artificial lighting. Hyun reached the speaking platform and activated the translation device at his throat. The small device hummed, to life, ready to carry his words to every corner of the vast hall. He had practiced this speech countless times during the long journey from Earth, but standing here now, surrounded by beings who had conquered stars while humanity was still. Discovering fire, the words felt inadequate. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "I come before you as a representative of humanity to request formal membership in the Galactic Council and to seek protection treaties for our world." The laughter grew louder. A Quillary delegate, no taller than a human child, but with skin that seemed to shift between dimensions, stood on their seat. Protection from what? They squeaked in their high-pitched voice. What threats could possibly interest themselves? In such a primitive world? "Your species has existed for what, 200,000 years?" called out another Vorthok. "We have ruled the energy currents of space for over 10 million. What wisdom could you possibly offer us?" Jan pressed on, knowing this was humanity's only chance. "We may be young, but we have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have learned to work together despite our differences. We have developed technologies. The Malthary war chief Garn rose from his seat, his massive form casting shadows across the platform. "You barely achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. My people were conquering star systems when your ancestors were still living." In caves, the chamber erupted in fresh waves of laughter. Hyun could see his aide Park Min-ho's jaw clench in frustration, while Lee Yuna's hand moved instinctively toward her sidearm, though both knew such gestures were pointless here. "Show us your great achievements," mocked a Quillary scientist. "Your computers are slower than our children's toys. Your weapons could not penetrate our ceremonial armor. Your ships take months to travel distances. We cross in days, perhaps," suggested the Vorthok delegate with false kindness. They could serve as entertainers. "I have heard their music is ... quaint." The insults continued to rain down from all sides. The Malthary spoke of worlds they had conquered, entire civilizations they had absorbed into their empire. The Vorthok demonstrated their mastery over energy by creating brilliant light displays that danced through the air above their section. The Quillary showed off their quantum manipulation abilities by making objects appear and disappear at will. Hyun waited for the demonstrations to end, then made one final attempt. "We ask not for special treatment, but for the chance to prove ourselves. Give us the opportunity to show what humanity can contribute to the galaxy." The laughter died down to scattered chuckles. The 3 major powers conferred among themselves, in languages that the translation device could not process. Finally, the Vorthok delegate spoke for all of them. "Very well, little humans. We will grant you observer species status. You may watch our proceedings and learn from your betters. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have evolved beyond your current limitations, we might consider your request again." The dismissal was absolute. Observer status meant humanity could send representatives to watch council sessions, but had no voice in galactic affairs. They would receive no protection, no trade agreements, no technological exchanges. Earth would remain isolated and vulnerable. As the session officially ended and delegates began filing out, Ian gathered his small team. The walk back to their ship felt much longer than the journey in. Behind them, he could still hear the occasional laugh and comment about the amusing little primates who thought they belonged among the stars. None of the departing delegates noticed the quiet determination in the human ambassador's eyes, or the way his team walked with their heads held high despite the humiliation. They saw only weakness where strength was being forged, only limitation where potential was being awakened. The galaxy had made its position clear. Humanity was alone. 3 years had passed since the humiliating session at the Galactic Council, and Earth had slowly begun to find its place in the vast network of galactic trade. The alien species treated humanity exactly as they had promised, as amusing curiosities who might occasionally prove useful for the most basic tasks. The Vorthok trading post orbiting Jupiter had become a regular stop for human cargo ships. Captain Song Moran watched as the crystalline beings floated through their energy-filled chambers, their bodies glowing with soft light as they manipulated the power flows that ran their station. Today, like every other day, they were selling humans outdated navigation charts for triple the normal price. These star maps are from 50 years ago, Park Soo complained to his captain as they reviewed the purchase. The young engineer had been studying every piece of Vorthok technology he could get his hands on, much to their amusement. "It is more than adequate for your primitive vessels," replied Kethfer, the Vorthok trader, his voice ringing like distant bells. "Your ships move so slowly that stellar drift will barely affect your routes." Park Soo nodded politely, but his eyes remained fixed on the energy patterns flowing through the station's walls. He had been watching these displays for months, sketching them in his notebooks, trying to understand the principles behind their power manipulation. The Vorthok found his interest endearing. Like a child fascinated by adult tools, what they did not know was that Park Soo had already begun to crack their energy equations. Working in secret aboard his ship, he had built small devices that could generate similar energy fields. The principles were actually quite simple once you understood that energy was not just about power, but about harmony and resonance. Meanwhile, in the outer asteroid belt, the Maltharii had established several waste processing facilities. They dumped the toxic byproducts of their industrial empire into human space, paying Earth's government small fees for the privilege. The Maltharii considered it generous, after all. They were providing humans with employment opportunities. Jin had been assigned to oversee security at one of these facilities. The job was supposed to be simple: make sure human workers stayed safe while handling alien waste. But Li Jin was not just any security officer. He was a former military strategist who had studied every conflict in human history as he watched the Maltharii supervisors direct their operations. Li Jin noticed something interesting. The four-armed giants were incredibly strong and skilled fighters, but they followed rigid patterns. Their battle formations, their response protocols, their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force applied in predictable ways. They always attack from the same angles, Li Jin wrote in his encrypted reports to Earth Command.
Ow.
Their formations have not changed in centuries. They depend so heavily on their superior strength that they have forgotten how to adapt to new situations. The Maltharii guards at the facility liked Li Jin. He was polite, efficient, and asked intelligent questions about their military history. They enjoyed telling him stories of their great conquests, never realizing that each tale revealed another weakness in their supposedly invincible war machine. Back on Earth, Dr. Choi Hanna was working in the most prestigious assignment any human had yet received. The Quillari had hired her as a research assistant in their quantum laboratory on Mars. The pay was terrible, and the work was mostly cleaning equipment, but it gave her access to the most advanced physics research in the galaxy. The Quillar scientists treated her like a clever pet. They would sometimes explain basic concepts to her, delighted by her apparent fascination with their work. "Your species has such limited understanding of quantum mechanics, Professor Zichtel would say in his squeaky voice. It is charming how you try to comprehend forces beyond your mental capacity. Choi Hannah would nod and smile, all while memorizing every equation, every principle, every technique she observed. Late at night in her small quarters, she would work on her own experiments. She had discovered something remarkable. Human intuition seemed to work differently than alien logic. Where the Quillari followed rigid mathematical proofs, humans could make intuitive leaps that led to unexpected solutions. Her breakthrough came when she realized that quantum fields did not just exist in the dimensions the Quillari understood. Human consciousness seemed to perceive additional layers of reality that alien minds could not access. She began developing applications that the Quillari had never imagined possible. Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out. Human doctors studying alien medical techniques in Vorthok hospitals. Human engineers working as janitors in Malthari shipyards while secretly analyzing their construction methods. Human pilots serving as cargo haulers while learning the navigation. Secrets of all three major species. The aliens saw only what they expected to see. Primitive humans, grateful for any opportunity to serve their betters. They completely missed the network of information flowing back to Earth, the secret research projects, the quiet preparations taking place in hidden laboratories and military facilities. The galaxy's three great powers had ruled for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to be challenged. Their strength had become their weakness, their superiority, their blindness. They had given humanity exactly what it needed, access to their technology, their methods, their secrets, and humanity, as it had always done throughout its history, was learning, adapting, and preparing for the day when the laughter would stop. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a Malthari courier ship that barely bothered to slow down as it broadcasted to Earth's orbital stations. Admiral Kong Min read the transmission twice, his face growing darker with each word. By order of the Malthari High Command, the message began: the satellite known as Luna will be claimed as a forward military installation. All human presence will be evacuated within 30 standard days. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Kung Min set down the tablet and looked out the window of his office aboard the orbital defense platform. The moon hung in the distance, its familiar craters and mountains as much a part of human identity as Earth itself. For 5 years, humanity had endured the insults, the exploitation, the casual cruelty of their galactic neighbors. But this was different. This was an invasion. Of their home system? Sir, his aide Commander Yun Sana entered the room, receiving similar messages from all major Earth governments. The Malthari are serious about this. I know, Kong Min replied quietly. Have you run the numbers on their fleet? 200 ships, sir. Heavy cruisers, battle carriers, and support vessels. They're already moving toward our system. Their current speed, they'll arrive in 6 days. The numbers were overwhelming. Earth's official military consisted of perhaps 30 ships, most of them converted cargo vessels with basic weapons. On paper, humanity had no chance against the Malthari war machine that had conquered dozens of worlds. But Admiral Kong Min had been preparing for this day for 3 years. Ever since the first intelligence reports began flowing back from human agents scattered across the galaxy, he had been building something the aliens could never imagine. A truly unified human defense force that combined the best of all galactic technologies. Send the activation codes, he ordered. All units, all projects. It's time. Across the solar system, hidden bases powered up for the first time. On the far side of the moon, massive hangars opened to reveal ships that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Near Jupiter, manufacturing stations that had been disguised as mining operations began producing weapons based on principles stolen from all 3 major alien powers. The Malthari fleet arrived exactly on schedule, their ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. War Chief Garn stood on the bridge of his flagship. The same massive warrior who had mocked humanity in the council chambers years before scanned the system. He ordered his tactical officer, "Show me what these primitives think they can do against us." The initial scans showed exactly what he expected. A handful of human ships scattered around Earth and its moon. Outnumbered nearly 7-1, Garn's forearms spread wide in amusement. They do not even try to run. Such courage from such weak creatures. Sir, the tactical officer's voice carried a note of confusion. I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from their ships. The patterns don't match any known human technology. Garn dismissed the concern with a wave. Whatever toys they have built, they are still just humans. Begin the attack. The first wave of Maltheri ships moved toward the moon, their weapons, charging with the familiar whine of plasma cannons. They had used these same tactics on 50 worlds, and the results were always the same. Swift, overwhelming victory. But as they closed distance, something impossible happened. The human ships began to fade, their solid forms becoming translucent like ghosts. Maltheri weapons fired through empty space where targets had been moments before. What is this? Garn roared. Report. Sir, they're using some kind of phase technology. Our sensors can barely track them. It's similar to Quillery, quantum manipulation, but ... different somehow. Before anyone could respond, the human ships materialized behind the Maltheri formation. Their weapons opened fire, but these were not the crude plasma bolts the Maltheri expected. Streams of pure energy, controlled and focused with Vorthok precision, cut through Maltheri shields like paper. Admiral Kong Min watched the battle unfold from his command ship, a vessel that combined human engineering with the best of 3 alien technologies. Its tactical display showed the Maltheri fleet in chaos, their rigid formations crumbling as human ships appeared and disappeared at will. Target their command vessels, he ordered. Li Jin's intelligence reports showed us their weakness. Without central coordination, they cannot adapt. The battle raged for 3 days. The Maltheri threw everything they had at the human fleet, but found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Human ships would phase through solid matter to appear inside Maltheri formations, strike with devastating precision, then vanish before return fire could find them. On the 3rd day, as the last Maltheri ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, War Chief Garn found himself alone in an escape pod, his mighty flagship destroyed around him. His emergency beacon was picked up by a human rescue vessel. This is impossible, he whispered as human medics treated his wounds. You are just primitives. How did you... ... We learned from the best teachers, Admiral Kongmin replied, his voice calm and steady. The news of the Maltheri fleet's complete. Destruction spread across the galaxy within hours. For the first time in galactic history, a lesser species had not just resisted conquest, but had utterly defeated one of the 3 great powers. The galaxy was no longer laughing. The news traveled, faster than any ship could fly. Within hours of the Maltheri fleet's destruction, secret communication networks across the galaxy were buzzing with an impossible story. Humanity had won. The species that had been dismissed as primitive pets had completely destroyed one of the 3 great powers of the galaxy on the industrial world of Kepler 44 to be. The Thraxian workers in the deep mines stopped their endless digging when the whispered news reached them. For 3 centuries, they had served as slave labor for the Maltheri Empire. Their crystalline bodies perfect for extracting rare minerals from dangerous underground caverns. Their overseer, a massive Maltheri named Groktar, noticed the work. Slow down immediately. Back to work, crystal rots, he bellowed, his forearms gesturing threateningly. The quota must be met, or you all go without food tonight. But something was different in the Thraxians' glowing eyes. For the first time in generations, they were not looking at the ground in submission. Elder Cathara, the oldest worker in the mine, stepped forward with a courage that surprised even herself. We have heard the news, Grokta, she said, her voice ringing like a bell through the cavern. Your mighty fleet is gone. The humans destroyed it completely. Groktar's face twisted with rage. Lies. Impossible. The Maltheri are invincible. Then why? Asked another Thraxian. Are you here bullying miners, instead of out there conquering more worlds? The rebellion began that day. Within a week, It had spread to 6 other Malthera-controlled worlds. The empire that had ruled through fear and superior force suddenly found itself fighting brush fires across its territory as species after species realized that their oppressors could be beaten. Meanwhile, in the energy-rich nebulas of the Andromeda sector, the Vorthok were facing their own crisis. Their monopoly on energy manipulation technology had been the foundation of their galactic influence for millions of years. But now, human ships were appearing with energy systems that worked better than anything the Vorthok had ever created. Kethfer, the same trader who had sold overpriced star charts to humans, watched in horror as his latest shipment of energy cores was rejected by his usual customers. "But these are Vorthok energy cores," he protested to the station master. "The finest in the galaxy." "Not anymore," the station master replied. Su, showing him a human-built device that was half the size but produced twice the power. "The humans are selling these for a quarter of your price, and they actually work better." Kethfer, as crystalline, body flickered with distress. "This cannot be. We have perfected energy manipulation for 10 million years. How can primitive humans surpass us in mere months?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Choi Hanna, now leading humanity's quantum research division, had published her findings on the Galactic Information Network. Her papers showed that human intuition allowed them to perceive energy, patterns that Vorthok logic could not process. Although Vorthok had perfected their ancient techniques, humans had leaped ahead to entirely new principles. The Quillari faced perhaps the greatest shock of all. Their mastery of quantum physics had been their greatest pride, the source of their technological superiority. But humans were now manipulating quantum fields in ways that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Professor Zichtel, who had once condescended to explain simple concepts to Dr. Choi Hanna, now found himself studying human research papers. With desperate intensity, "This is impossible," he squeaked to his colleagues. "They are manipulating quantum fields through dimensions we cannot even detect. How can they perceive what we cannot?" The answer was becoming clear to scientists across the galaxy. Human consciousness operated differently than alien minds, where alien species had evolved to follow logical patterns and established rules. Humans had developed the ability to make intuitive leaps that led to breakthrough discoveries. But the real revolution began when Earth started broadcasting a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. Captain Onari stood on the bridge of her diplomatic vessel, the UES Harmony. As it transmitted the simple words that would change everything, "We stand with those who seek freedom." The message was not just words, it was backed by action. Human ships began appearing in oppressed systems, offering aid and alliance to any species that wanted to break free from the old order. The Thraxians received advanced mining equipment that made their work safer and more efficient. The Quillari, long oppressed by Vorthok energy monopolies, received clean fusion reactors that freed them from dependence on their overlords. Captain Onara's fleet became a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Her ships carried not conquering armies, but teachers, doctors, and engineers. They offered knowledge freely, asked for nothing in return except the chance to build a better future together. "Why do you help us?" asked Commander Veltar of the Quillari Resistance as human technicians helped. "Repair his damaged ships." "Kazo!" Nari replied. "We remember what it was like to be laughed at, to be dismissed as primitive. We remember being alone in the galaxy with no one to help us. We will not let others suffer that same loneliness." The revolution spread like wildfire. World after world, species after species, began to break free from the old system of oppression. The galaxy's 3 great powers found themselves fighting, not just rebellions, but a complete transformation of galactic civilization. The age of the strong ruling over the weak was ending. In its place, something new was being born. A galaxy where species worked together as equals, where strength came from cooperation rather than domination. And at the center of it all was humanity. The species that had been dismissed as too weak to matter, now leading the galaxy toward a better future. The same chamber that had once echoed with mocking Laughter now buzzed with respectful conversation as delegates from across the galaxy took their seats. Chancellor Kim Hoon stood at the central podium wearing the simple blue uniform of the Terran Commonwealth. Rather than the ornate robes that previous galactic leaders had favored, the man who had once been dismissed as a primitive ambassador now held the most powerful position in the galaxy. "The session will come to order," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. The translation devices hummed softly, but many delegates no longer needed them. In the past 5 years, learning human languages had become fashionable. Across the galaxy, in the Vorthok section, Kethfer sat beside his human research partner, Dr. Park Soo. The crystalline being's body glowed with soft contentment as he reviewed their latest joint project. "The efficiency ratings are remarkable," he said, his chime-like voice filled with genuine admiration. "Your intuitive approach to energy harmonics has increased our output by 300%. Park Soo smiled and nodded. "And your mathematical precision helps us avoid the dangerous resonance patterns. Make a good team." It was a partnership that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. The proud Vorthok, who had once considered themselves the masters of energy manipulation, had been forced to admit that human creativity could surpass their ancient techniques. Rather than resist, the wiser among them had chosen to embrace this new reality. "We have learned that true mastery comes not from perfecting old methods, but from remaining open to new possibilities." Kethver had told his people during the Great Transformation, "The humans have shown us that even 10 million years of knowledge can be improved upon." In another section of the chamber, former War Chief Garn stood at attention beside Captain Li Jin, who now served as the Commonwealth's head of peacekeeping operations. The massive Maltheri warrior wore the silver uniform of the Commonwealth Peace Corps, his forearms crossed in the traditional pose of service rather than conquest. "The situation on Rigel 7 has been resolved peacefully," he reported to Li Jin. "The mining dispute was settled through mediation rather than force." Li Jin nodded approvingly. "Your people's strength makes them excellent peacekeepers, Garn, but it's your willingness to protect the weak rather than conquer them that makes you great." The transformation of the Maltheri military caste had been the most dramatic change. Of all, their empire had crumbled within 2 years of the Battle of Luna. But rather than fade into history, many had chosen to serve the Commonwealth. They had discovered that using their strength to protect others gave them a sense of purpose that conquest never could. "We were warriors without honor," Garn had admitted during his integration ceremony. "We mistook brutality for strength, conquest for achievement. The humans have shown us what true warriors fight for, not to destroy, but to protect." In the Quillari section, Professor Zichtel bent over a holographic display with Dr. Choi Hanna, his squeaky voice filled with excitement. "Your latest quantum manipulations should be impossible according to our equations, yet they work perfectly. How do you perceive these additional dimensions?" Choi Hanna laughed gently. "I don't think it's about perceiving them, Professor. I think it's about feeling them. Human consciousness doesn't follow the same patterns as yours. We can sense connections that your logical minds might miss." The Quillar had perhaps struggled the most with the new reality. Their entire culture was built around intellectual superiority. The belief that their logical minds were the pinnacle of evolution, and learning that human intuition could surpass their mathematics had been deeply humbling. "We have become students," again, Zichtel had announced to his colleagues. And perhaps that is what we needed. We had grown so proud of our knowledge that we forgot the joy of learning. Chancellor Kim Haeon called for the day's main business, the admission of 3 new species to the Commonwealth. The Calaria, the Thraxians, and the Yorathi had all requested membership, bringing the total number of Commonwealth species to 47. "Each species brings unique gifts to our alliance," Han explained to the assembled delegates. "Mastery of biotechnology, the Thraxians' geological expertise, the Yorathi's artistic vision. We are stronger together than any of us could be alone." The vote was unanimous. As the new members were welcomed with applause rather than mockery, Heen reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy that had once been ruled by fear and domination was now bound together by cooperation and mutual respect after the session ended. Heian walked to the great window that overlooked the stellar vista beyond. Ambassador Onari joined him, her diplomatic uniform bearing the insignia of her many successful missions. "Do you ever miss the old days?" she asked with a slight smile. "When we were just the amusing primitives that everyone could ignore?" Chuckled. "Sometimes it was simpler then in a way. But I think we've built something better than what came before. The other species are still learning to trust us completely," Onari observed. "Some still fear what humanity might become. With all this power, perhaps they should," Heian replied thoughtfully. "But not because we might become tyrants. They should fear that we might inspire them to become better than they ever imagined possible." The galaxy had learned its lesson. The species that had been dismissed as too weak to matter had not only survived, but had transformed the very nature of galactic civilization. The laughter had indeed stopped, replaced by something far more valuable: hope for a better future.